How do you find your identity when it has been cut into thousands of pieces and hidden away? One of my symptoms from being abused chronically by narcissistic people includes a deep loss of identity. One thing I have found since I went no contact with my main abusers is that those parts of myself I had to put away are finding me, not the other way around. It is almost like they know when it is safe to come out of the dark and make themselves known again. Today, I want to share with you a very important piece of me that made itself known last year and how it has impacted my life ever since. Hi, I am Raysa, a survivor of narcissistic abuse, and I have complex post-traumatic stress disorder, and you are listening to Hello Trauma Brain, a podcast where I share my experiences living with complex PTSD. My hope is this podcast can help destigmatize mental health and provide support to anyone diagnosed with C-PTSD who thinks they might have it or has a loved one with this diagnosis. Quick reminder, I am not a licensed psychologist or mental health care professional, and this podcast is not meant to replace nor substitute the care of psychologists, other mental or medical health care professionals. If you think you might have complex PTSD or PTSD, please reach out to your primary care or mental health care provider. Any individuals and resources mentioned in this episode are not sponsoring Hello Trauma Brain. This episode may reference abuse, trauma, and suicidal feelings or ideation, and listener discretion is advised. Remember, you can always pause or skip this episode at any time. And now, let's get back to the episode. Hello, dear survivors, and welcome to this episode of Hello Trauma Brain. Thank you for joining me today. If you are listening on YouTube, a gentle reminder to hit the like button and subscribe to let me know this episode was helpful. Before I go on, I have an announcement. For those of you listening through Google Podcasts, please know that Google Podcasts is going away, so you will need to transition to a new platform in order to continue listening to Hello Trauma Brain. After April 2nd of 2024, you will no longer be able to listen to this show or any other podcasts on Google Podcasts. You can still listen on Spotify, Apple Podcasts. If you have Amazon Prime, you can listen for free through Amazon Music, and you can also listen through the YouTube channel. Please reach out to hellotraumabrain@gmail.com if you need help making this transition. I am happy to help you find a new home to continue listening to Hello Trauma Brain. Quick check-in. All right, so I took a week off from podcasting. I got the flu and it kicked my bum. And I didn't even realize I had the flu while I had it. I realized it was the flu after the fact. And on top of that, therapy is also kicking my You see, why not have one therapist when you can have two? I am doing individual therapy, and we are doing the resourcing and setting up my coping skills to begin doing EMDR sessions, which I am not gonna lie, I am very scared about. And also, I am doing group therapy, and that follows the relationship recovery process model. And that is really hard work, folks. I have noticed that my depression is at full force, and I often feel exhausted. And because there's always more when you're healing from complex trauma, and it really feels like a bad infomercial, like when they just keep adding things like, and there's more. Well, there's more for me too. I am also healing from a physical injury, so it's been relentless. My bandwidth has been limited. My window of tolerance is super small these days, and I just opted not to push myself to do this episode last week because I needed to rest. I needed to take a breather, and especially given how big this episode feels. I personally had decided I wanted to do this episode around this time when I decided to do the podcast. And as the time approached, I'm not going to lie, a part of me kept almost like wanting to postpone it. And maybe that's what the illness was about. Maybe my body just shut the whole thing down. So I didn't do it right away. But despite the illness and my body's tendency to just avoid the thing, I'm gonna proceed as planned. So today, I want to tell you a story about a piece of Raysa that I found last year. So let me set the scene a little bit with some concepts that I think are relevant for what I have experienced. We have briefly talked about betrayal blindness before. This is a concept introduced by Jennifer Fried, and it arose from her theory on betrayal trauma. And I actually found a book by Jennifer Fried and Pamela Burrell that I will link in the show notes. I have not read it yet, but the book is called Blind to Betrayal: Why Do We Fool Ourselves? We Aren't Being Fooled. I also found a short YouTube video clip of Jennifer talking about betrayal blindness that I will link. Essentially, the concept is that when you are being betrayed significantly by someone you trust or you rely on or someone who's taking care of you, your brain hides that information. A simple example of this can look like a child that is being abused by a parent, and the child needs to engage in relationship with the parent to get their basic needs met. So they can't confront their parent about the abuse, as it can be life-threatening. So what the brain will do is make the child unaware of the betrayal in order to reconcile being able to stay in the situation. For some people, it might look like forgetting the experience altogether. Others will remember it but retell it differently from a place of being empowered, though that is not what happened. Now, personally, I believe that when you are in a narcissistic relationship, your brain will do something similar with other aspects of yourself. And it begins to hide parts of you that are not safe to embody in these relationships in order to keep you safe. I don't know if there is a term for this phenomenon that I have personally experienced, but if anyone knows, please reach out. I welcome a new term to dive into. If you are like me and experience constant narcissistic abuse during your developmental years, this might look like not being able to develop parts of yourself that were not allowed in these environments. So, let me tell you my story and how this concept has played out in one aspect of my life. And I'm gonna tell you the story not in chronological order, but in the way that I experienced it. Okay. Here we go. So once upon a narcissistic relationship, could be the start of any movie, right? In between the time I was limiting contact with my abusers and when I finally went no contact, I was learning a lot about narcissistic abuse. I was listening to a podcast episode by psychologist and narcissistic abuse expert, Dr. Jamie Zuckerman. I know you were waiting for Dr. Ramani. I was definitely doing a Dr. Ramani deep dive back then, but turns out she's not the only narcissistic abuse expert out there. And so this particular psychologist, she goes by Dr. Z, and her podcast is called It's Me, Dr. Z. And I will link that. Dr. Zuckerman was talking about a client recovering from narcissistic abuse that did not realize they were queer. I remember vividly where I was when I heard that through my headphone. I even remember that I only had one headphone in. It stopped me in my tracks, and I felt a sense of panic mixed with resonating. I remember feeling scared of that being my story too, and it made me sad to even consider the possibility that I didn't even know my actual sexual orientation well into my 30s. I did not explore it more. I just thought, I guess I'm gonna find out eventually if I keep doing this work. So I kept doing the work. Months later, at this point, I am no contact. I was facilitating a support group meeting, and one of my attendees was in the middle of her share which was basically letting us know that she had realized she was queer. And to be more specific, she identified as lesbian. And this was someone who is slightly older than me. So this is on Zoom, right? So if you could have pictured my little square on Zoom being animated by like Japanese animators, like I'm in an anime all of a sudden, the moment she said that, my background would have turned like this bright purple and like sparks of different colors would be coming out of my head. And it would be like that epiphany moment of like, wait a second. One of the main reasons I doubted I could be queer was the fact that time and time again, queer people I know would say that they've known since they were little. And that was just not true for me. My first crushes were men. So if I did not feel queer at the age of 10, then how can I be queer now? But this person sharing on my meeting, they realized they were lesbian well into their adult years. So that almost like sparked the wait a second. So this is not as simple as just knowing when you're little. And think about this for a moment. How many of us adults who were in narcissistic relationships as adults, we forgot what we want for breakfast. We don't even know what temperature we want the apartment in. We don't know if we're a morning person or a night person or whatever the heck. Like adults get their likes and dislikes and just sense of self hijacked by these relationships. So it would make sense that as a kid, I wouldn't know I was queer, right? Like, it just makes sense. Like, how was I going to go there? Especially, just to give you some background, I grew up Roman Catholic in Puerto Rico. So culturally and religiously, like, the message was gay people were going to hell. They're bad. They need to repent. And they're sinful. And being straight is the only way to go. So yeah, I was not going to be making that realization at the age of whatever, when I was a kid, essentially. So back to the Zoom meeting. Meeting ended, and I ruminated about this for a good few weeks, probably about a month. Then, on March 18, 2023, I am talking to someone who at the time was a newer member of my chosen family. And she opened up about being bisexual. Bisexual. When the word came out of her mouth, I felt it. I almost picture like another like Japanese anime moment in my little Zoom square. Because we were on Zoom too. Go figure. All of a sudden, hundreds of puzzle pieces came out of nowhere and just fell into place. And I knew it then. That was me. I told her what I had just experienced, and she so kindly first celebrated me. And turned out that would become the first time I kind of came out to myself and to someone else simultaneously. She took some time to explain how gender and sexuality can be fluid and change over time. And it kind of blew my mind at the time. It felt like a bit of an awakening. Not a bit. It felt like a huge awakening. Now, to this day, I still identify as bisexual. I have wondered if maybe pansexual is more accurate. I just don't know. I don't know. What I do know is that I am queer. I'm definitely not straight. Now, looking back, and I feel like this is something that members of the LGBTQIA plus community will talk about. Like looking back, like things start just making more sense. And I do remember I started realizing I felt attracted to women back when I was probably starting off college, those first years of college. And I even told two people. At the time, I thought maybe I was a lesbian. And I told someone I was involved with romantically at the time. And I was like, if I find the person on the screen attractive, does that mean I am? And they were like, yep. And that was the end of the conversation. There was no exploration. I do remember the relationship ended about a few months after that. And if I am honest, for many years, I think I blamed it on that. Like when the relationship ended, I was like, it was probably because of that. Now, honestly, this was the best thing that could have happened to me. I'm so glad this person discarded me because otherwise I would be in so much trouble right now and I would not have a good life. Second person I told was another person that was very close to me, also one of my main abusers, of course. And I think they've always known. I think because they've always made comments like, are you gay? You can tell me, and I'll love you anyway. But the one time when I finally like said something, their response was, are you sure? You've only had one boyfriend. Like, you haven't had any more boyfriends. How are you gonna know? And they started freaking the fuck out. And I basically just went like, you know what? No, we're good. Never mind. Forget I said anything. I was just confused. Don't worry. We're good. We're good. And for many years, every time I had a breakup, it was like, could it be because you are lesbian? And I would be like, no, 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 that's a fluke. And part of it, I think it was almost like that blindness thing on my brain going off, like, this is not safe. It's not safe to be queer here. Like, we're not doing this, right? And the other part is, growing up in, again, what was a very homophobic, very biphobic environment. It was very black and white. Like, you were either queer, like gay or lesbian, or straight. There was no in between. Like, bisexual people were portrayed as, they're just confused. They're just confused. They don't know what they want. They probably are just gay and they don't want to admit it. That's how it was presented to me. And yeah, you were either or. And I was attracted to men. So it was very easy for my brain to go like, well, if I do feel attracted to men, then I guess I can be queer. So we're not queer. It's probably just a fluke. And even this abuser that I had told, they would say like, well, I do think that women are attractive, but like, I don't want to bang them. Like, and even that framing was there. Like, well, if you don't actually want to go all the way, then you're not actually a true queer person, right? So yeah, all these messages just became a concoction. And I essentially went back into the closet. This is my early 20s. And I went into the closet to the point where I even fooled myself. Like, I wasn't secretly like, oh, I'm definitely queer. I'm just not going to tell anybody. I didn't even know that I was. I really thought I was straight. I fooled myself pretty good. That's how good my brain is at it will fool everybody else and me included. I think I remember also learning about the term bi-curious when I was in college. With me, like, remembering exact quotes, I'm really bad at that. But I can remember very vividly how it felt. When I heard the term bi-curious, what I felt was a lot of shame. A lot of shame that could be what I was experiencing back then. And how wrong and sinful and bad I was. And how I needed to reconcile it or I was going to go to hell. That's what was going on in the brain of young adult Raysa developing at the time. I remember being very scared to attend LGBTQIA plus events in college. And I think part of it was that one of my main abusers, they were very big in saying things like, being gay is contagious. Like, Raysa, you gotta be careful. You can't be hanging out with them because they'll make you gay. Like, that was something this person would say to me all the time. And, from a young age. But being in college and physically, like, geographically away from this person, I ended up going to a LGBTQIA plus event on campus. And I have to say I had so much fun. I had so much fun. And I became friends with queer people in college. And I love them. They were wonderful people. And I remember that around that time, that's when I began disagreeing with my own religion. I grew up Roman Catholic. And even though I was still going to Mass at the time, I just decided, like, I'm not prescribing to this belief of condemning gay people to hell. And I thought it was judgmental and cruel, and queer people are as much people as any of us. I basically became an ally, and I'm not even Roman Catholic at this point, and I haven't been for years, but I became very passionate about LGBTQIA plus rights. At the time, as I finished college, as I started my first job. And looking back, apparently that could be a sign you might be queer if you're very, very passionate about LGBTQIA plus rights. I wouldn't say that's like a all or nothing, but it definitely was a sign for me. So as I grew up, as I went through my 20s, homophobia just had no place in my life. And quoting another friend of mine, who is also bisexual and who did not know when they were younger, they didn't know for a long time. One thing they said to me was, in their experience, it was okay for other people to be queer, just not them. And I would say that was true for me. Like, I was so passionate about other people being able to be who they were, but I couldn't even be myself. That wasn't allowed for me. And my brain didn't change that or allow me to see who I even was until I went no contact. I remember a few years later, I was involved romantically with someone else. And I remember telling them I had a phase of being quote unquote confused because I definitely ended up concluding I was very much into men and I was not queer. Poor girl. I couldn't even see that I was very much into both. I basically didn't realize I was queer until a year ago. And to give you some context, we're talking 35 years old, okay? So how was coming out in my mid 30s? Okay, it's been complicated. I have been celebrated by some wonderful people. In some cases, strangers have celebrated me. And I have been let down by some other people. And some of those people who let me down were people I was very close to. Right off the bat, not even a month after I come out, I was sexually harassed. I reached out to a colleague who was queer, thinking they would be a good mentor for me and they would help me cope with this realization and all the grief that I was feeling about coming out later in life. They started hitting on me immediately. That was right off the bat. And I found my way through those initial messages, but things escalated pretty quickly. When another person approached me to say that this person had told them they were in love with me, I decided, okay, we need to set a boundary. So I wrote them an email to let them know I was not interested in that way. I think part of the reason I did it via email was because we had already had a conversation and it just didn't go well. It didn't go well. And let me tell you, y'all, to this day, the email this person sent me back remains one of the most abusive and disgusting emails I have ever received. I only read it once, and that was enough for me. It was long as hell, as you would expect with people like this, because they always write you a novel and email. And I did have trusted people read it too, just, make sure I wasn't like over or misperceiving what I had read, and they were just as horrified. And I still have it just in case I ever need it, but I have not read it again, and I hope I never do. And that email got that person a one-way ticket to a no-contact trip out of my life. Next, I started coming out to some of my old friends. And I got another taste of disappointment there. Now former friend who is actually part of the LGBTQIA plus community, they butchered my coming out. This person who for years had told me about how their coming out was horrible and traumatic did not give me anything different. At first, they asked, what is bisexuality? Which is fine, quite frankly, I feel like I don't fully even know the whole of it myself. So I can do some education there. And I appreciated the curiosity. And then they proceeded to say, well, at least you've been an ally for a year, so this is going to be easier for you. Then they changed the topic and started talking about something they needed to vent about. And I just remember feeling so sad and so let down. There was no celebration of me. There was no, oh my gosh, I'm so happy for you. It was just like, it's going to be easy for you. Now let me talk about me again. And let me tell you, at first I thought, maybe they just need some time to process and they'll come back around. And around the time when I told them like Pride was coming up and I never got invited to Pride by this person, I think they just thought, this is just for the queer people. And I thought, well, now that I'm a part of the group, like I'm really one of them, I'm going to get invited, right? Didn't happen. Person didn't even message me for months after I came out to them. And in fact, we don't even talk anymore. It just faded away. There was no big conversation about it. We just stopped talking. And it really hurt. It hurt so much that I stopped coming out to people I knew because I was just so scared. I would keep losing more and more people. And here's the thing. When you are already going no contact with abusers, like main abusers that are a big part of your life, and you're grieving, all the things you didn't have, and you're grieving so much, healing from complex PTSD, from narcissistic abuse, from complex trauma, from all the stuff, just adding one more person feels intolerable. And honestly, there's so much I can lose, like I'm not just grieving not being queer for so many years. I'm grieving so many things. And there's only so much I can tolerate losing all at once. So, there it is. There it is. We're going to let it happen. It's okay. I'm surprised I didn't start crying sooner, honestly. So, I came out to like a few more people that I know, like I've never caught them saying something negative about queer people that I know were, either allies or queer themselves and like on the safer side. And quite frankly, even being queer stopped being a criteria for me coming out because look at what happened, right? This was someone I was really close to, also queer, and they butchered it too. And even the person who harassed me, they were queer, and they should have known better, yet they decided to take advantage of it and make their move. It's just I decided to keep a low profile, a really low profile, and give myself just time to come to terms with it. And quite frankly, I'm still coming to terms with it. I'm still very much figuring things out. And even recently, two different people, an acquaintance and basically a stranger, they made some really dubious comments about being queer. And it's, again, another reminder that it's just not easy to be a member of the LGBTQIA plus community. It's just not. Doesn't matter if you've been an ally for many years. It's not easy. I can tell you from experience. There's a lot of homophobia and biphobia and just intolerance, a lot of intolerance for people being themselves. That's really what, it blows my mind. The most recent encounter was with, and this just happened 2 days ago. So my car was in for the inspection / maintenance, and the place where I took it offers a shuttle service. So I was taking the shuttle, and I'm with the driver, and it's just me and him in the shuttle. And I was basically thanking him for picking me up and for, how much easier this was for me to be able to take the shuttle because I live by myself. And he goes, "You know what you need?" And I'm like, being my naive self, I go, "A shuttle?" And he goes, "You need a husband." And at that moment, I heard my little inner Raysa, like little Raysa just goes like screaming, "Or wife." And I didn't say anything to him. I just stayed quiet. And, it's interesting because a part of me felt like I should have said something, but a part of me's like, why am I saying this to a stranger? He doesn't deserve to know that about me. Clearly not showing how unsafe he is already with that assumption, right? But my silence said something too. I didn't just agree with him and go like, "Oh yeah," like I just didn't say anything. And then he added, "Well, as long as you're happy." So he got the message, I think. I think he realized that was just not resonating with me at all. But again, it's another reminder. It's just there's a lot of growth that still needs to be done for a lot of people out there. So I want to talk about the grief and what I've been grieving since I came out to myself as bisexual. over a year ago now. I am still grieving all the time I lost not knowing that I was queer. I've talked about Heartstopper before. It's such a great show, and if you didn't pick up on it before, that is why that show pulls so much grief out of me. Because this is a show essentially where all these high school students are exploring their sexuality, being asexual or trans or bisexual or gay or lesbian, and they're like having their first relationships, like queer relationships, and they're going through some hard and they're coming together as a community, supporting each other through all these things that are happening, right? And a part of me is like, wow, I didn't even know I was queer when I was in high school. I remember hearing people making fun of the queer kids in high school. Like, honestly, like what I felt when I was young, when I would find out someone was queer, was like, oh, I hope they're okay. Like a part of me, even the empathy would be there. Like, I hope they're okay. I hope they can figure it out, and I hope that God, will quote unquote forgive them, which is horrible. It's horrible. But I never thought to myself, like, I need to change them. And like even then, if I think back, I still saw them as people. I didn't see them as like less than me. I just, I was just concerned for their salvation. Like that was the extent of it. Like, you wouldn't catch me waving a Bible in their face, shaming them for it. Like, that would feel horrible. And I even knew that as a kid. And it's just like baffling because now I'm in my 30s, and like some of the people that were acting this way when I was young, like this is the age they were. I'm like, I can't even imagine like marinating a kid on those beliefs, let alone talking so horribly about queer people. Ugh. And yeah, maybe that was the queer person in me. Maybe that was the empathy. Maybe that was both. Like, a big message I got growing up Roman Catholic was that God was the only one who could judge. And I remember as a kid seeing adults judging or hearing them judge other people, and I would always think like, this is interesting because isn't God the only one allowed to judge? Like, aren't we supposed to not be like worthy enough to judge anybody? Why are you judging people like this? Like, this is horrible. Like, I make mistakes too, and I sin all the time, So yeah, now looking back, it's just interesting. It's interesting how, like, I don't know, it's just people twist things, and I feel like being hateful is just, oh yeah, not for me. No, thank you. No, thank you. So back to my grief. I am grieving that I missed out on having a girlfriend earlier. I grieve not being able to explore in high school. I am grieving all the proud events I did not attend, all the people I didn't meet because I was not part of that community years ago, or haven't been for many, many years. I am grieving how coming out is complicated and painful and joyful. Like, it's weird. It's like a weird concoction. And quite frankly, like, as an adult, coming out is hard. My heart goes out to the kids, like these high school, middle school, like younger kids coming out. You are so brave, so brave. Show is probably not for kids, so you're probably not listening to this. If you listen to it as an adult, you are so brave. You are so brave. It's brave. It's brave. It's not easy. As an adult, this is hard. It's hard. And if you've been doing it and you've been at it since you were younger, my hat goes out to you. And if you had bad experiences, I'm so sorry. That should have not been what you experienced. And I'm disgusted. And I am angry on your behalf at whoever butchered your coming out, at whoever shamed you, at whoever just made this process even harder for you. I am grieving all the years I wasted feeling shame about who I was and who I could be. All the years I spent not being able to be out to myself. And yes, it is not too late, and I can still explore, and I can still have a girlfriend, I can still do the things, I get it. But I'm not getting the time I lost back. I'm not getting those years back. I don't get to redo high school. I don't get to redo college. That part is gone, and that I need to grieve, and I'm grieving it. It deserves to be grieved. And if you came out late like me, you came out older than me, or the same age as me, or a little bit younger, but you know, it wasn't back when you were 10. You're not alone, and I'm grieving with you because it hurts. It hurts not to be allowed to be yourself. Give me a second. I compose myself here. A moment, please. Okay. There it is. We're gonna finish it. as I am. I want to tell you about my first Pride event. June 17, 2023. Went to my first Pride event on my own. Nobody invited me to anything. Nobody was like, you're coming with me. I do have people that if we were geographically close, they would have taken me to the Pride thing. I love you for wanting to, and it's just so sad that you're so far away. But so my inner kiddo, we're going to go by ourselves. We don't need anybody to invite us. Like, we have an invitation. We're part of the community. We're going. So I found an event nearby, and it was this beautiful festival. And I arrived to the parking lot, and I see that there's police officers at the entrance, and they're keeping an eye on this group of protesters that were on the other side, holding their Bibles and screaming treason to people going to the festival. And one of those people was me. They definitely screamed treason at me. The staff had these like really big rainbow umbrellas, and they were like, they basically, like, when you were about to cross by the protesters, like they were coming towards you and like covering you with the umbrella as you would walk in. And I remember thanking them for putting up with that, which was so wrong. But once you were in the festival, it was like you were in a whole new world. Oh my gosh, I think I'm gonna cry my way through the end of this episode. That's okay. It was a whole new world. I felt like I was with my people, and I was by myself. You know, like, you hear people say that they can feel alone in a room filled with people, like in a crowded room, they can feel alone. And the opposite is true, y'all. You can feel connected in a community, even if you're technically enrolling through the thing alone, but the people around you are just, you know that you all belong together. That's just something that I've struggled with for so many years. I constantly feel like I don't belong anywhere. I've always felt that way. That's why Belle was my princess, right? Because Belle just didn't belong in that French town. And to feel like you belong. Wow. And I remember meeting people there. Like, there was a couple that had driven like 4 hours to come to this particular festival. It was 20 minutes for me. They drove 4 hours to get to a place where they belong. So, yeah, my inner kiddo freaked the out at the parking lot. My inner kiddo was very scared. And then we had a really good time. It was a really, really awesome festival. And I'm really sad I can't make that particular festival this year because I have a wedding to attend. And attending and singing, like, they're friends of mine. But it's okay. I'm going to find a different Pride event this year that I will go to. And there's always next year for this particular festival. And yeah, it was just beautiful. Beautiful to see people wearing the flag with so much pride. And I will post a picture of me at the festival on the Instagram account. So if you follow Hello Trauma Brain there, you'll get a picture of Raysa with her inner kiddo there last year. So On March 7th of 2024, not very long ago, I went to see Maddie Zane, who actually was celebrating her birthday that day, and she was playing in Philly. And Maddie is a singer-songwriter, very, very talented vocalist. This girl can sing. And Maddie is openly bisexual. So this was the first concert I went to where the singer is openly queer. So the people going are, a lot of us were in the queer community. And again, I had that feeling. I felt like I belonged. I've been to many concerts and I enjoy myself at concerts, but usually in concerts, the concerts that I've been to, like, you can like pick out the narcissistic person in the room very quickly, and there's some just nasty people there. And that was not the case at this concert. There was a queer couple next to me, and the one young partner, they were young, the young partner was telling the other about reading a book on attachment styles. It's like, oh my gosh, these kids are reading about attachment styles. Yes. Yes. Like, you don't hear that. Like adults that are not healed, the conversation is like they're trashing somebody, they're talking, smack about their workplace or their partners. Oh my gosh, talking. By the way, side note, that is like a huge trigger for me. Like, if I hear you talking about the person that you're with, like they are the just garbage, why? Just no. Like, you need to have this conversation with them. That's the first step. And two, why are you doing together? And why do you talk about them that way? Like, what? You wouldn't catch me talking about someone I was with that way. But anyway, this young queer couple talking about attachment styles, and like they're learning and like talking about healing journeys. Like, yes. There's, you know what? There is hope for us, y'all. These kiddos growing up, they're awake. They're learning. I think like there's a lot of potential there, and I'm so excited to see these kids grow up and take over. And I did take a video. I'm going to try to find a video because I was singing along. So you might have to put up with me singing in the background. But I will find a video from the ones that I took and post that also on the Instagram account. We're celebrating queerness this week. So 1 year later, that's the whole point of this episode. I wanted to make this episode 1 year later and like look back. What does a year being out look like? This it's a whole shebang. You've gone with me through the whole roller coaster of emotions. There's been joy, there's been grief, there's been disappointment, there's been celebration, there's been risks, there've been, people yelling treason, and kiddos talking about attachment styles. On March 18th of 2024, I actually had a really rough day. It was a tough day. Maybe it was related to the coming out anniversary. Maybe it wasn't. I just felt absolutely overwhelmed, had a bunch of panic attacks, and it was brutal. I even felt suicidal that day. Not actively, but the feeling was there. And the feeling, I know the feeling was about ending how bad I felt. Not me per se, but it was, yeah. I had to reach out to both of my therapists that day and schedule emergency sessions that week with each one of them. And I'm so grateful they both came through so quickly. Like, they're on it. One of them saw me that night. The other one talked to me the next day. They were on it. Like, within not even 24 hours from reaching out, I already had like stuff set up with them. And it really helped. And I have felt better since. I even was able to get to a point where, like, at the end of the day, it was towards the very, very, very late end of the day, I was able to eat dinner. Like, I got myself takeout. And I ate dinner later than usual because, the session, the session pushed my schedule. I wasn't done till like late in the night, but got my yummy dinner. I watched my favorite coming out episodes from Heartstopper. And for the last, I want to say 2-3 hours of that day, I was able to celebrate myself. During this year, I actually went on 2 dates with a woman. I did it. My first time going out with a woman, like talking to somebody, and I did it. And I discovered that I feel more comfortable dating women. Maybe I am lesbian. I don't know. I just don't know. That's the sad part when you've lost your identity. You just there's a lot of things you don't know or you're not sure about. So it will take time, and maybe I won't identify as bisexual in a year from now. We'll figure it out. And with this person, they're lovely, and it didn't work out for us to be romantically involved. It wasn't compatible in that way, but we did stay friends, and I learned something new about myself. So, yes, I am queer and bisexual, and to all my lovely members of the LGBTQIA plus community, you are so welcome here. If you are discovering your queerness later in life, it is never too late to discover something new about yourself. And take it gently, because it feels painful too. And you are in some real, real good company. So thank you. Thank you for listening to this very big coming out episode. And yeah, we're adding that rainbow flag to the Instagram account. So be on the lookout for that too. In this week's healing invitation, I want to encourage you to reach out to show your support. I have been very afraid to release this episode, and there are people that know me that will find out that I am bisexual when they listen to this, if they even do. I am not good at asking for help, so this is me practicing. This week, I want to let you know it would be so helpful to receive some love that says, I am not making a mistake by releasing this episode. If this has been helpful and you feel the calling to reach out, please do. I cannot wait to hear from those of you that want to show your support if you choose to accept this invitation. Before we wrap up this episode, all music and production is courtesy of yours truly. Also, I want to share a few ways you can help support this podcast. You can subscribe and leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, or the platform you are using to listen. Share this episode with anyone you can think can benefit from this content. Follow Hello Trauma Brain on Instagram with the handle at Hello Trauma Brain. Subscribe to the Hello Trauma Brain YouTube channel and hit the notification bell to be the first to know when I post a new episode. And you can make a donation by getting me a coffee through the official bio site. No worries, all links will be provided in the show notes. Thank you for joining me today and for holding space for this important part of my life. I hope you found this episode helpful. I wish you the best as you find your identity. It is time for our farewell affirmations. You are welcome to repeat after me. I am enough. I am lovable. And I deserve to heal. I wish you a gentle week, and thank you for listening.